Could I get John and Rachel down to the front, please? John and Rachel down to the front. We have decapitated heads in aisle 4. Decapitated heads in aisle 4 for a cleanup.
That's right. It's 1989. This is Open Mic Night of the Living Dead, and we're talking Intruder.
The creature's creeping right behind you. I hope you finally find a little slice of peace and light. 'Cause it comes crashing down tonight. Welcome to the open mic. When we call your name, you'll die. But there's no need to dread. This is the open mic night of the living dead.
All right.
Okie dokie.
That was great.
Thanks. I after our shining intros, I feel like big pressure but we got to simplify it for a simpler movie.
Usually I ask if you worked on that ahead of time, and I know you didn't because I watched you come up with it in real time.
Wow.
And I am, as always, impressed by your brain.
What an experience that must have been for you.
Every day of my life. You have no idea.
Who are you?
I'm Rachel.
You're here for the cleanup?
I sure am.
I am John, and this is Open Mic Night of the Living Dead. Like we mentioned in the intro, we are discussing a much different movie than we have over the last couple of weeks. We are talking about 1989's Intruder, directed by Scott Spiegel. And yeah, this is going to be a little bit of a different experience discussing this than discussing The Shining, wouldn't you say?
Very different experience, but no less enjoyable, just in a different way.
Yeah, no, this is a great film. But before we get started, this is where we tell you that this is a deep dive of Intruder. There will be plenty of spoilers. So if you have not seen it yet, hit pause, go jump on your television set and see where you can find this streaming. We found it on AMC Plus when we recorded this. I don't know when you're listening to this, but maybe that's a good place to start.
Yeah, and so given there will be lots of spoilers, and this is a movie that's better without spoilers. They're all better without spoilers, but this one in particular.
This one might be the most spoiled by the art design of the poster.
I know, I saw that. So don't even look at posters of this movie.
Yeah, just blindly search. Do like a voice search in your phone, or not in your phone, in your remote.
Get someone else who doesn't watch horror movies to find this for you, cue it up, and press play.
Yeah, or just know ahead of time that if you look too closely at the poster, you might get an idea of some spoilers.
Did we have it spoiled before we watched it for the first time?
No, because I'm a very thoughtful person. And when I think I had seen it once before we watched it together. And so I queued it up without you seeing the poster.
I really do hate spoilers. I know not everybody is as sensitive to them, but I had Fight Club spoiled for me back in 1999. No, it would have been summer of 2000 because the internet was young and I was on a movie site and I was reading something about it and I hadn't seen it yet. And ever since that day, that summer of 2000, 26 years ago, I've hated spoilers.
Well, and especially for this movie where it is a slasher movie and the killer's a bit of a twist. So for them to basically expose the killer in the poster kind of kills the tension throughout the movie if you know that they're sort of leading you down the wrong direction on purpose.
We say that, and also this is no Fight Club.
Right.
So it's not the worst thing in the world. But we will keep talking about spoilers from this point on. So
absolutely.
No real content warnings on this one.
Did you have any notes on when we did watch it the first time?
I do. I have a master list of when I've watched movies, and I have all of my movie watching on Letterboxd. Not a sponsor, but I can show my activity. May 2023 is where I have my first record of us watching this movie, which was the first time I saw it, and this was just the second time. This time we watched it.
And I would say that this is probably the least known movie we've covered in a deep dive so far. Is that fair?
Is it less known than Slumber Party Massacre?
I would say so, yes.
Interesting, because the team that made this movie is wicked famous.
Right.
And Slumber Party Massacre, not as famous.
No, absolutely.
But the film is more. Yeah, I would say, yeah, I don't think anybody... I sat next to somebody in line today who was talking about podcast and the horror podcast, and she said, have you seen The Evil Dead? And I said, oh boy, have we. And she said, those are the only kind of horror movies I like, anything before 1990. And I said, well, boy, do I have a film for you. And she had never heard of it, even though she's a huge Evil Dead fan.
I mean, I think there's a lot of horror fans out there who are into lots of horror who probably haven't heard of this. That's the thing. Slumber Party Massacre came out sort of earlier, sort of when the slasher cycle was fresh. Plus, it has that element of, there's a bit of depth to it.
There is, yeah, as we discussed. There's some pretty serious themes.
And this, on the other hand, really came out a bit later, and I'll get into that a bit more in a minute. But do you have a summary for us?
I do. When the Walnut Lake Market announces its closing, the overnight stock crew stays late to prep for their final days. Jennifer's obsessive ex-boyfriend Craig shows up and refuses to leave, and then someone starts killing off the staff one by one.
That'll happen.
Oh boy.
Don't close a grocery store. So this movie was written and directed by Scott Spiegel, maybe an unfamiliar name to some of you, but he is part of, like Rachel mentioned, sort of that Michigan filmmaking crew that includes the Raimi brothers and, of course, Bruce Campbell, sort of the team that put together Evil Dead, with some roles moved around, because we get all of those guys in this movie, but really the star of this show is the writer-director Scott Spiegel, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And while the screenplay was by Spiegel, the story itself was by Scott Spiegel, and the producer, Lawrence Bender, who I'll tell you about in a bit as well. He's been involved with some serious movies later on in his career. But this movie was released on January 13th, 1989 in the United States. What a good year to start out 1989, a powerful year for film. It had a very limited theatrical release and originally was distributed by Empire Pictures, but we noticed that on the streaming version we watched, it looks like the rights for distributing now are with Full Moon Features, which is Charles Band, right?
Yeah, Charles Band, shout out. I didn't realize that.
Like we had mentioned before, we are in a Charles Band movie.
Yes.
Our only horror appearance.
Our only IMDb credit, which doesn't exist yet, but you can't get him for being an extra, right?
Well, definitely not the kind of extras we were.
Background extra.
Background extra in a large group of people. This movie has a runtime, well, the R-rated version has a runtime of about 83 minutes. Don't watch that one because you're going to miss out on all of the stuff that makes this movie great. The unrated cut, the version that we watched, which is the unrated cut, is about 88 minutes, and that has all of the gore and everything added back in. I haven't seen the 83-minute version, but I understand that's sort of devoid of all of the, great special effects that makes this movie so cool. And the other thing about a movie like this that only had sort of a limited distribution and really had no attention at the time that it was released, some of the information out there is pretty thin and kind of fuzzy. What I found for the budget, it's commonly cited as around $130,000. No idea what it made. I've got no box office numbers, nothing like that. I didn't even bother to translate that into this year's money. So back in '89, it cost about $130,000. Very low budget film for a crew of guys who love working in low budget film and really know how to make the most of it. And while it didn't have a big theatrical release, like many movies through VHS and DVD, it really has found its growth in sort of the cult horror universe. And I wish I could remember even how I had originally heard about it. I don't know if I just saw it on there and watched it and was like, whoa.
I'm so glad you did.
Rachel's got to see this one. But no major awards. I mean, you've got the real major thing about it is the people who made it and the people who are in it. And, this later cult reassessment. I don't have any notes from critics back in 1989.
There were only 3 reviews. This is the first movie I've ever seen that does not have a tomato meter reading on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow.
There's 3 reviews. The average review is 3.25 out of 5, but I think most of them were more recent.
Oh, you mean on Letterboxd there's only 3 reviews?
No, on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, gotcha.
No, tomato meters. So like official reviewers. Yeah. So I've never seen that before.
I thought you were going to give me the reviews, but I guess we don't need those reviews.
No, I won't give them to you.
So, because of this, that there was a very limited mainstream footprint and it barely registered critically at release. Just like you said, most of the reviews out there are just by viewers.
Just folks like us.
I do have one from Bloody Disgusting here that said it's not a classic, but a manna for gorehounds, which I thought was pretty good. And also, I lost my sight on this. It's not a classic, but a what? A manna for gorehounds. Isn't manna like M-A-N-N-A?
Like manna from heaven? Like bread provided by God?
Yeah, manna for gorehounds.
Okay. The other kind of mana is like magical mana, like that you use in video games. And I didn't know if it was M-A-N-A, like it's like magical power or like food from the gods.
Food from the gods.
Food from the gods.
For gorehounds.
Okay. Sorry. I had not seen that quotation. So
the key takeaway here is it's not a reclaimed masterpiece. It's a late cycle slasher that stands out stylistically. And really, in terms of the context of the horror landscape at that time, this movie falls directly in the slasher genre. But this was a time where slasher fatigue was really setting in. All of the major franchises were deep into their sequels, and the genre was sort of splitting at this time into more studio efforts. You're seeing more Stephen King adaptations, and also on the other hand, like cult, experimental, weirder horror. And Intruder stands out through its visual creativity and, of course, the grocery store setting, which I love oh so much. But if you were going to be out and about in 1989 watching movies, I would have been 6 years old, certainly not allowed to go see horror movies yet, which is too bad. Because even though we are in sort of the slasher fatigue era, there are so many movies that I love, even the terrible ones here. You could have seen Pet Sematary, speaking of Stephen King adaptations, Wes Craven's Shocker, which I have not yet watched, but it is on my queue, and Halloween 5, the lesser of the Danielle Harris Halloweens. And then Friday the 13th, Part 8, of course, that's Jason Takes Manhattan or Jason Takes Toronto or something. One of the first movies we watched that was a Joe Bob movie, Society. And then The Burbs came out in 1989. Tom Hanks dabbling a little bit into the genre comedy side of things. You also had Tetsuo, the Iron Man. And lastly, A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, which would have been Dream Child. Also, not fantabulous, but worth a watch as well. But there were also a lot of great non-horror films that year. You had the release of Tim Burton's Batman, which had Michael Keaton as Batman. I need to go back and watch that.
yeah.
I really loved that as a kid, but I think I'd appreciate it so much more. Another movie that I used to pretend that I was in was Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
There's video evidence, isn't there?
Oh, yeah. And then, of course, Do the Right Thing, When Harry Met Sally, Field of Dreams, Dead Poets Society, The Little Mermaid, and Born on the 4th of July. So, a handful of movies that you mention one and people go on and on about how much they love it. So, understandable how a low-budget B-horror slasher in a genre that's on its way out could have gotten lost in the mix.
Yeah, that all makes sense and makes sense why people haven't heard of it. But maybe we can bring it up to the forefront a little bit.
Watch Intruder. Do you have anything else for me before we
The only thing that I have, we usually talk about like sequels and reception afterwards. There was a documentary made about the making of this movie.
Really?
Yes, it's called Slashed Prices, The Making of Intruder. It came out in 2011, directed by Michael Felsher. Can't find it anywhere.
It's not on YouTube or anything?
I looked up streaming and it wasn't on any streaming services, but it's not always, I did not check YouTube myself. So, but yeah, I would love to see that. And I bet some of the information that's in some of the articles that I read, there's not a ton of them. So we probably read the same ones, but I wonder if some of it comes from that documentary. And then, yeah, I've just got the ratings.
Yeah.
6.1 on IMDb, no tomato meter on Rotten Tomatoes, but 53% from viewers because they're dumb. They don't understand what this movie was doing.
I thought 6.1 was pretty good, though, for IMDb for this type of movie. I thought that was pretty fair.
6.1 is pretty good. 53% is more surprising just because if this is such a little-known movie and only slasher fans are watching it, then you would think that they would appreciate it for what it is. But fine.
Well, maybe more non-slasher fans watched it and decided to rate it, and they were like, what have I gotten myself into?
Very true. That's fair. Because this is... We can talk more about this later. I'm just thinking kind of like Wishmaster, way better if you know how or who's in it and who made it.
That, and I think that this movie works really well if you are a bit more well-versed in horror movies, especially 80s horror movies and especially slasher movies.
Yeah.
I think you can really appreciate it a lot more. If you'd only seen a couple of slasher movies along the way, like Halloween and maybe a couple of Friday the 13th, and you watch this, maybe you'd think it was a stinker about 15 minutes in, but again, I can't sing its praises enough.
Yeah.
What did you give it?
So the first time we watched it, I gave it a 4.5, which is, I know, super high. And I think it's because this was early on in our journey. And my rating is an out of 5-star system. And it means I weigh very highly how much I enjoy a movie, not necessarily how objectively good it is. This time around, I think I gave it a more muted 4, which for me is up there. I don't give a ton of 4s, maybe 10 to 20 a year, maybe, but not a 4.5, which for me is a little bit higher than this. So this is a 4 for me. What about you? What did you rate this?
On my scale of 1 to 10 with half stars, half numbers, halfity halves. I give it between a 6.5 and a 7.
Oh,
I think
interesting.
I've given it both along the way. So ideally, it's like a 6.75 for me, but I can't actually do that in my rating system.
That's still a slightly wider spread, but I think I often give these 80s wacky movies, I often rate them higher than you because I love them so much.
I mean, if this, at the end of the year, we'll end up doing our top 26 of 2026. Yep. If this was the first time we watched it, even though I rate it a 6.75, I would imagine there's a good chance it would end up in my top movies just because it really is a standout for me. But what about on our podcast rating, which is just a 3-tier system trying to help guide the listeners in what they should be watching? 1's total trash. Don't even bother.
Don't bother.
2 is general, all good. You got to see this horror movie if you're a horror movie fan. And 3 being, genre changing or masterpiece level standout kind of stuff.
Yeah. This is a solid 2.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right down the middle. Yeah. Again, my personal scale a little bit higher because I love it. But if you're asking, should I watch this movie as a horror fan? For sure. Should you prioritize it if you haven't seen something like The Shining or Psycho? No, you shouldn't.
But you could still prioritize it a little bit.
You should prioritize it over some others, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a mid to high 2, I would say. Yeah, that's great. I think that's it. Should we get started and make a movie?
Let's make a movie.
Let's make a movie. We'll make sure that it's spooky. I sure hope that it's groovy. Let's make a movie.
All right.
Okay.
Let's make a movie. And who made this movie? Who is the key personnel? Of course, I mentioned earlier, Scott Spiegel, the writer-director, was born on December 24th, 1957, a Christmas Eve present to the indie filmmaking world. He was born in Michigan and went to high school with who? Who did he go to?
Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell.
All right, and that's how he ended up in that filmmaking circle. He began making a lot of Super 8, do-it-yourself kind of films along the way, and he was a producer, I think, on Evil Dead and was a co-writer of Evil Dead 2, and his career was really built through collaboration and indie filmmaking, and he wrote and or produced Evil Dead 2 in 1987, The Rookie in 1990, The Nut House in 92, and then Hostels 1 and 2 in 05 and 07. I think he produced those. And then he didn't direct a ton of films, but he directed From Dusk Till Dawn 2, My Name is Modesty, and Hostel Part 3. But overall, he's known for having like a visually playful style, strong genre instincts, but he never really broke into top-tier directing like Sam Raimi did. And interestingly, at one point during pre-production, Tobe Hooper was originally set to direct this movie.
Oh, wild. I didn't know he was connected to this crew.
I'm not sure he was, but maybe they were going to bring him in to direct after Spiegel had written it. But
oh, crazy.
I had also mentioned earlier that Lawrence Bender was the producer, and you might have seen his name in other places. He was born in 1957 in the Bronx. He started off as an actor and became a producer and later he's produced a ton of stuff up to the present day, but really what really stands out for me is he produced basically all the Tarantino films from Reservoir Dogs to Inglourious Bastards, so including Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, and the Kill Bill films. And so Intruder was his first production credit and his early stepping stone into the business.
Do you know how Lawrence Bender met Tarantino?
I don't.
He was introduced to Mr. Tarantino by Scott Spiegel.
Ooh.
So Scott Spiegel, our director, introduced Lawrence Bender to Quentin Tarantino, and then he helped produce Reservoir Dogs and went on from there.
That's pretty awesome.
That is pretty awesome.
Well, that's all I have really for the key personnel. Those were really the two personnel of note. What do you got for cast?
For cast, I have... Oh, one more thing on production crew. Remember that title, executive in charge of production, that we saw? So there's a title in the title screen. I've never seen executive in charge of production. So I dug a little deep. It is a distributor side role distinct from producer or executive producer. A producer develops and oversees a film creatively, which we know, and an executive producer is usually the money. And the executive in charge of production is the money's eyes on set. So a representative of the financing entity making sure the film. So it's like the producers or the executive producer's eyes on set. And I guess this kind of role was common in low budget indie horror because distribution companies were fronting the cash and they wanted someone with eyes on the investment. So, and since this production, Intruder was supposed to be released through Empire Pictures, and then Empire went bankrupt during production. And so Intruder ended up at Full Moon Features because Charles Band was able to take some of the films with him out of bankruptcy.
Oh.
So that's part of, we mentioned that a little bit, that Charles Band, he's not credited as an executive producer, but was an executive producer. It was supposed to go through his old company, which went bankrupt, and then he took that. So the exec in charge of production was Charles Band's eyes on set.
Cool.
Yeah, pretty neat, right? Yeah, so cast, such a big cast. We've got Elizabeth Cox, played Jennifer Ross. She has only a few movie credits, Night of the Creeps in 1986,
Nice.
which we enjoy. She also she was an uncredited high school student in 16 Candles. However, she is now professionally known as Liz Kern. She transitioned to broadcast journalism and has worked and is working as a news anchor and reporter in Texas for a while and is currently in Fresno, California.
Whoa.
So yeah, you could be getting your news from Jen. We've got Renee Estevez, plays Linda. She is one of those Estevezes. She's the daughter of Martin Sheen, the sister of Charlie Sheen and Emilio Estevez. She had top billing in this, although she doesn't make it very far into the film, but was probably one of the most famous names at that point outside of horror, I guess. I don't know. She also did Sleepaway Camp 2, Unhappy Campers. But other than that, known primarily, I guess, for being an Estevez.
Don't know.
Yeah, like her brothers, she was in a ton of stuff in the 80s. She did play an underage hooker in Lethal Weapon in 1987.
I was beat out on that role. That was supposed to be me. I was 4. The most underage hooker. That was what they were going to call it, Lethal Weapon 4, the most underage hooker.
The most underage hooker.
And it was going to be me, but they said I was too whiny for the role.
That does not surprise me one bit. She was in Heathers in 1989 also.
Interesting.
Yeah, which I didn't realize. And then a few other things. She was in Dead Silence in 1991.
Oh.
She was in Single White Female. She was in a few other things, but I know I wasn't super familiar with her work, but she's been in a number of films, none of them super duper famous, some TV work, that kind of stuff. But she was delightful in the role.
Absolutely.
We've got Dan Hicks, who plays Bill Roberts, one of our store owners. He played Jake in Evil Dead 2, so he's part of the Raimi circle, like so many others on this film. He was also in Darkman, which is in 1990, which is another Sam Raimi film we have not seen, unless you've seen it. I haven't. It has a small role in Spider-Man 2002. I still remember the moment in the theater watching Spider-Man in 2002. I was in college when Bruce Campbell showed up and I freaked out. None of my friends I was with knew who he was. He's had a series of small roles in TV, movies, and short films until his death in 2020.
And that was Bill you were talking about?
That was Bill, yeah.
The
Dan
co-owner?
Hicks, the co-owner. Yep. David Burns plays Craig Peterson, who is our villain at the start. This is not the same guy from the Talking Heads. That is something that needed clarification, apparently, enough that it showed up in a search. He was born in Scotland. He's Scottish, which I didn't realize. The other thing, and this is a super deep dive for another day, but he has like 3 other movie credits. He was in Witchcraft 7, Judgment Hour in 95, and Witchcraft 9, Bitter Flesh in 97. There are 16 Witchcraft movies. They're all around a 3 on IMDb. The description for Witchcraft 7, Will Spanner is at it again, battling sex-starved, beautiful demon vampires. And then Part 9 is, Will Spanner, parted from his body, finds a hooker who can hear him. Meanwhile, detectives Lutz and Garner investigate a string of murders tied to ancient Egypt. So the witchcraft movies seem like maybe we should put them on a list somewhere.
Sounds like we'll get to them in about 7 years.
Exactly.
When we've run out of everything else.
I thought it was interesting. But yeah, not much else beyond that. Danny, who is the other co-owner, is played by Eugene Robert Glazer. He was quite well known as Operations in La Femme Nikita, the USA TV show, 97 to 2001. That was kind of his biggest credit, but has 60 other acting credits. He was on a lot of procedurals. He's got like a procedurals vibe, I think. That makes sense. Burr Steers, who plays Bub, who was super fun in this. His biggest role that I noticed was that he played Roger in Pulp Fiction. They called him Flock of Seagulls in Pulp Fiction. You know that movie better than I do.
Yeah, I have to.
But it makes sense if he's part of this little crew, right? That he would have a role in that. He also became a director later on. He directed Igby Goes Down in 2002, 17 again in 2009, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies in 2016, which I've not seen, but I think might be cool. And has also done a few TV episodes of Chapelwaite, Big Love, and Weeds. So lots of work. Also, interesting tidbit, he is the nephew of Gore Vidal, and his mother was Jackie Kennedy's stepsister. So he's got a pedigree, and he was named for his ancestor, Aaron Burr. So old school entertainment, American royalty, kind of. Let's see, that was Purple Shirt Guy, a.k.a. Bub. We've got Tim who has a pretty small part. There's a lot of people working at this grocery store. So Craig Stark, he has a lot of acting credits, worked for Marlon Brando as a teenager, and was hired to build a notorious nightclub for Jack Nicholson.
Cool.
I don't know anything else about it. I might want to find out someday.
Sounds like there's a lot of cocaine there.
It sounds like there's probably a lot of cocaine.
Allegedly.
Billy Marty plays Dave, our clean-cut good guy. He has like 3 other credits, a TV movie and another movie in 2006. Other than that, I know nothing. Sam Raimi plays Randy, just an actor in this movie, nothing else unusual.
And we had the Raimi brothers backwards.
The whole time we had them backwards. Sam Raimi is Randy, the butcher. He, obviously, we all know who Sam Raimi is. I'm not even going to tell you what other movies he's made. At this point, he had Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 under his belt. Darkman had not come out yet, although had either been produced or was in production because how they got the special effects guys was through a producer from Darkman. He was great in this. I'm not sure I've ever seen him in a role. I've seen him in cameos before, but not as many roles. So that was kind of cool. And his brother, Ted, who we thought he was the other until we got to the end. Ted Raimi plays Produce Joe, who's great. He also was part of the Evil Dead movies. He's in Darkman, all 3 Spider-Man films, Triple X, Drag Me to Hell. He showed up in Candyman for us. He was in Wishmaster, which we just watched recently. He is just a great cameo whenever he shows up and was awesome in this movie.
Absolutely.
So, we had asked about Mr. Abernathy, the old man at the beginning of the movie, who has a couple lines, but man, are they memorable. This is played by Emil Sitka. He was a longtime collaborator of the Three Stooges and appeared in many of their shorts. So he had that old school charm, kind of capture the camera energy.
That line he says, yeah, so the old guy, the only customer we really see, right, at the beginning of the movie is the old guy that you're talking about, Emil Sitka. And at the end he says, "Hold hands, you lovebirds," which is a line he was known for saying in his Three Stooges shorts.
Oh, I didn't see that. Oh, that's awesome. And that's so perfect for this movie where there are just so many little appearances like that. Speaking of, you know the 2 cops who show up? Did you see about this?
They're from Green Acres.
Yes, they're from Green Acres. So 2 Green Acres veterans playing cops that show up too late, right? So again, really cool little shout out here and just an example of how the team that made this movie has deep connection and deep root and a deep love for film and cinema and comedy and all of the things. Bruce Campbell shows up at the very end, of course, as a police officer. And this completes the Evil Dead trifecta. We've got Spiegel, Raimi, and Campbell. And he had done Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 at this point, clearly. And he must have done Maniac Cop, which is a super fun movie, too. So he's probably one of the more recognizable actors at this point. He still, of course, has done a gajillion things since then. Bubba Hotep and Briscoe County Jr. and Burn Notice for TV. And, of course, Ash versus the Evil Dead for television as well. So, no need to go into Bruce Campbell. Lawrence Bender does make a cameo as Officer Adams. And Greg Nicotero is a townie in a car.
And Scott Spiegel's the bread delivery guy.
Yes, he is. He is. So that is our cast.
Excellent. Well, a little bit on production here. Scott Spiegel, responsible for the story along with Lawrence Bender. This is based on Spiegel's experience working in a grocery store, and specifically a grocery store called Walnut Lake Market, like the grocery store in this movie.
Across the street from Walnut Lake Elementary School, where they went to school.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And so the town in this movie is a fictional town called Walnut Lake, Michigan, which is named after a lake in West Bloomfield, Michigan, which is the area that the Raimi brothers, Spiegel and Campbell, all grew up in. And Spiegel originally shot like an early version of this film called Night Crew on the Super 8. And I guess it had more of like a Halloween type killer, more of like an anonymous slasher. And Night Crew was also the original title of this film, and it sounds like the production company decided to call it Intruder to give it a more generic horror-sounding name. I think Night Crew is actually a pretty cool name for the movie.
Yeah.
And just like some of the marketing, Intruder is kind of a misleading title.
Yeah, and it really is.
Because I was also going to mention the distributors or whomever really played up the fact that the Raimis were in this, and especially that Bruce Campbell was in this, even though Bruce Campbell is in for like 2 minutes.
Yeah,
at the
most.
end.
Yeah.
But anyway, they changed the title to Intruder. It was shot in a real grocery store in Bell, California. I had seen a couple of different things. I saw one thing that said it was like a deserted grocery store, but I've also seen one that they were shooting in the evenings when the store was closed. Either way, for their shots, they were using a lot of defective goods to stock the shelves. Obviously, there's a lot of interaction with some of the goods along the way, some crashing into beans and
Oh, yeah.
all sorts of things. And I love this grocery store setting, and I'm looking into doing some research for our encore for this episode, doing grocery store horror.
I had the same idea. Clearly, that's what we're going to have to do for Encore.
There's not a ton, though.
There's the ones we're thinking of already.
Just The Mist. What else? What else do you have?
I mean, that was the one, and then there's got to be more.
There's got to be. We'll have to do some that just have like a bit of a grocery store in them, because I don't think there are many that actually take place in a grocery store.
I mean, any zombie movie, A Quiet Place, The Walking Dead.
I guess.
We'll have to think about it.
Yeah, I guess I like movies that take place in sort of old, late 20th century consumerism locations, because I love a mall setting. I love a grocery store setting. Those kinds of things. I love it. So, they were filming with low budget conditions, which was nothing new to them. And they shot this movie over the course of 2 weeks, got everything they needed. And this film was shot entirely on short ends. Do you know what that means?
I don't.
I forget what other movie I heard of. I mean, I think plenty of people did this, but basically because they were on such a limited budget, but they still wanted it to have as high a quality of an image as possible, they bought short ends, which are the partial rolls of unexposed film stock from previous films. So like if they'd taken a roll of film, say they shot some movie, say Ghostbusters or something, and they didn't finish a roll of film, they'd have the short end left over that hadn't been exposed yet. And so you basically could buy these short ends for cheaper instead of buying, full rolls of film, and you could save money that way and still have higher quality.
Huh.
Yeah, I mentioned before, too, there was the R-rated cut where all the gore was censored out, from my understanding, and luckily that has all been restored.
Yeah, there's been quite a few versions of this. Do we own a physical copy of this?
Not yet. I'm kind of hoping that they're going to put out a 4K, but I was looking at the Umbrella, which is an Australian company, has a limited edition Blu-ray version of it.
Yeah, there's a 2019 Full Moon 30th Anniversary edition that I saw, which was remastered from the original negatives, but I did not see anything about 4K yet.
I'm hoping they do a 4K
I bet it would
scan
look so
of
good.
the negatives. But that's pretty much all I had on production. Did you have anything else?
I don't think so. I think we covered it all.
Super. Does that mean you're telling me?
I'm telling you.
It's vibe check. We check the vibes.
Let's check them.
Here we go, we're checking the vibes. Sounding good and looking real nice. How'd they make that guy unalive? It's better off without CGI. Listen on point and we're feeling fine. The slow burn is taking its time. Here we go, we're checking the vibes.
All right. Let's check these vibes. We're going to start off with what I call cinematography.
I love cinnamon.
It's easier for me to type that. I'm not a bad typist. I've got pretty good typing skills. I paid close attention in, what did they call the class when we were in school? I bet it doesn't exist anymore. Keyboarding?
Yeah.
Cinematography might be the hardest word that for me to type that I type fairly often.
Yeah, it's that C to the E. That's like a quick. Yeah, I can see what you mean.
But the director of photography for this film was Fernando Arguelles. He's a Spanish cinematographer who graduated with Master in Fine Arts in Cinematography from the American Film Institute in LA, and he's a member of both the American Society of Cinematographers and the Spanish Society of Cinematographers. So that's pretty cool. And he's worked on other films, but really, the bulk of his career has been in television. He's been working really straight up until the last couple of years ago. Until the last couple of years ago? Is that a sentence that anybody should speak?
I think maybe you get rid of the ago, like through the last couple of years.
So he's got a long list, but some shows that I thought were notable. He did 11 episodes. And when I say he was the cinematographer for 11 episodes of Walker, Texas Ranger.
Yes.
23 episodes of Hemlock Grove.
All right.
Which is a horror-ish
It's like a
show.
werewolf show, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I watched like the first episode. It was pretty cool, but I kind of fell off on that. Maybe something to go back to eventually. He did 11 episodes of Grimm.
I love that show.
He did 4 episodes of Fear the Walking Dead. And most recently, he did a couple episodes of CSI Vegas.
Oh, cool.
Where your crime scenes are full of underage hookers.
I bet he doesn't do all the cool stuff in those shows that he did in this movie.
Yeah, I bet not. I think a lot of that too. Well, who knows for sure. We're always talking about sort of the relationship between the cinematographer and the director, and whose vision is what, and who's responsible for some of the shots. I get the impression that Spiegel was responsible for a lot of the ideas, but also I've seen some stuff that implies that Mr. Arguelles here had some creative input as well.
I think they must have had so much fun.
I think this film, to me, seems like it was incredibly fun to shoot. Everybody was just having a blast with their roles. You're looking at the Raimis, not responsible for, the heavy lifting behind the scenes, just eating up the scenery. And there are so many great shots in this
I have
movie.
more cinematography notes for this movie than I almost ever have, and it's so crazy that it's Intruder. I think I have more notes on individual shots for this than I did for The Shining, which is nuts.
I'm glad that you have those notes because I didn't include specific shots in this. This is more just the technical, and I'm almost towards the end of it here, but
Yeah, no, I've got a few shots we can talk about because I for some reason that really caught my eye this time around.
Yeah, that's why I liked it so much the first time I watched it, and basically made you watch it as soon as it had finished playing for me. Like the next day, I think I probably, but that was a big thing here, and it shows you really the cinematography in this, and the shot selection shows you how you can really sort of upgrade such a low budget film, especially a low budget genre film. It's really POV heavy and a lot of unconventional camera placement. And I have a list of sort of the unconventional shots, but I'll let you kind of bulk that up here. But these types of shots enhance the spatial awareness and it really takes advantage of the setting, which is really fun.
Yeah, I'm just a side note on cinematography. I definitely did not notice that the first time we watched this movie in 2022. I knew what it was, cinematography that is, right? But I didn't notice it. I think it is really cool to see how much has changed in the last 4 years of movie watching maybe 3 years. I don't even remember what I said half an hour ago. It is so cool that has changed my appreciation. And so now I can tell you more about why I like it. It still impacted me before, but I couldn't explicitly tell you why. I didn't remember that Intruder had that cool shot through the mop, for example, right? But now I'm like, oh man. At one point I turned to you and I was like, it seems like a film school project to hit every possible crazy shot you could possibly do.
Well, I bet they must have sat down and were like, we're in a grocery store. Like, what are all the things in a grocery store and how can we do something cool with them? I mean, it opens up on the full moon, which is a nice transition from the full moon features sort of logo. But then it gives you a brief establishing shot of the grocery store. and a couple of establishing shots of like signs in the grocery store, like meats or something like that. And then it goes really quickly. All of a sudden you are in a shopping cart, POV, going down the aisle, looking out through the grates of the shopping cart to tell you exactly where you are.
Yeah, there's more than one shopping cart POV shot, right?
Yep. Yeah, because they use it again. Because at first it's like mundane, right? It's you're safe, you're shopping. And the second time that they do it, it is when Craig is sort of looming and we think that he is the bad guy. I mean, he's not a good guy, that's for sure. But he's sort of looming outside as Jennifer is like taking out the trash or something. And we see that he's standing there, but she doesn't see it. And then all of a sudden there's that shopping cart POV again approaching her. And you're like, oh, here's danger coming, but he's disappeared. He basically did the old push and run, which is what I do when I'm done loading the car up. You know, I try to get a 3-pointer into the cart collection area.
Oh, yeah. I could see that. Yeah. Every object was either a framing device or a hiding place or a weapon. Like the setting in this movie is a part of it, inextricably a part of it, in a way that I really appreciated this time around. Yeah, POV from the shopping cart. I have that one. The shot through the phone, where you're looking up through a rotary phone.
And I don't know how they did that. Maybe it's in that documentary you were talking about, because I'm not sure it was actually through a phone.
Oh, no, they must have. My guess is they put like a cutout over the lens, right? Like just the shape of it.
Yeah.
And then like pointed the camera up at her, maybe. One thing I noticed, and it wasn't just goofy or weird shots like that, and then like the one on the floor and her mopping up the mess over the lens. There was a lot of light and shadow work. I've been watching the Universal Monster movies. I'm up to 1941, so I've watched watched all the Universal Monster movies from the 30s. And one of the things in those movies that is so striking is the use of shadow, because of course you're in black and white, so you're working with light and not color. And I noticed a few places throughout this movie where that was really intense and really quite masterfully done. There was one point where Jennifer is talking to Linda about Craig, and she's saying he was in prison. And then the camera slowly pans over until we're looking at Jennifer's face through metal bars reminiscent of prison bars, right? Like there's this deliberate visual coding that goes along. It was so obvious,
right?
But it was so nice. Like it was so, that's what I mean. Like it felt like a project almost of, you know, how can we match up the visuals with what's going on? And that is one of the cool things about this.
And there's like a sense of humor about it too. Like a shot like that, like it,
yes,
so obvious they're having a bit of a laugh.
You can imagine them being like, yes, oh my gosh, yes. It's like when we write a song and then there's a line that just kind of hits, right? You're like, oh yeah. Like you can totally imagine that.
There was a lot of use of reflections in a really cool way where they sort of introduce it at first and sort of closer to the beginning, once they've found Craig and kicked him out, there's sort of the reflection of the entire crew that you're seeing. They're standing in the grocery store, he's standing outside, and their reflection is sort of overlaid over the top of him.
Right. And
then he backs away and sort of fades away. And that's really cool. And that shot in general, to me, was really reminiscent of a lot of sort of cheekier giallos, where usually at one point in the film, and I'm actually thinking of Pieces, specifically a Spanish type wacky giallo that is now on our Wheel of Horror, by the way.
Yes.
There's a shot where it's every conceivable possible villain, like anyone who's a suspect, I should say, is like all in one tableau. And that's sort of what they pulled off with that shot. But then they use it to good effect later on when Jennifer's the only one left standing. She's trying to get out, and all of a sudden you see Craig's reflection, but you don't even realize at first necessarily that it's his reflection. He's, he could be standing outside, but no, instead he's actually right behind her.
Yeah, I have a few of those shots written down. Some of my notes I don't recognize what part they were from. I have her shadow on the ceiling. Like, I don't know which shot that was, but it must have been good. There was a shot of Tim labeling the beer cans that was just beautifully framed. Like, he was kind of in the corner and there was a door and there was a shadow. Like, it was just beautiful. Not what you expect from a movie like this. Bill running across the counters to get at Jen.
Oh, yeah.
At the end, that shot was wild.
Yeah.
Really cool looking. Like,
yeah, she's running towards the door at sort of the end of the if you're imagining your grocery store right now, wherever you go, and the power's out, you're running along towards the closest door at the ends of them where somebody would have been bagging them. You're running there, and the guy chasing you is running across the conveyor belts right in speed with you.
yeah,
It was so cool.
it was really neat. And then there was a lot of match cuts. Like,
I love match cuts.
So many match cuts. And we see these all over the place in slashers and in, comedy horror, and even in regular horror, there's plenty of match cuts, right? But this one was just, there's one, which one did I write down? The huge knife to the watermelon foreshadowing sequence. Like, there's a ton of those. And there's a lot of foreshadowing the instruments of death before they're used. So, like, the receipt pin and the box crusher and the conveyor belt down. There's just where he comes down, like, alive and then later dead. Like, it's really cool. It's a really neat way. The story is told as much through the shots as it is through the narrative. And actually, primarily through that, since that's kind of the whole point of this movie.
Well, and aside from these amazing shots that really you could tell, like you're saying, all the foreshadowing and everything, there was just so much thought put into it. Aside from all of that, if you want to come here for one thing, if you're not interested in cinematography, if you're not interested in cool shots, that stuff doesn't stand out to you, and you're a horror fan or a slasher fan, you should have come here, and you should come here for the special effects.
Oh boy. This is the funnest special effects section I think I've done in a really long time. So the special effects were done by K&B Effects Group, which is Greg Nicotero, Howard Berger, and Robert Kurtzman. If you watch horror movies, you have seen these guys. K&B was formed in 1988, so Intruder was one of their earliest projects. I think it was one of their fourth or fifth projects. Later on, they went on to become, and they still are, the dominant practical effects house in Hollywood. And the gore in Intruder this was kind of like an audition for them. They really wanted, so their horror, their gore is visceral, wet, committed. Think Drew Barrymore's death scene in Scream, which was them, right? Any scene in this movie. But I started writing down the movies that they've worked on. There's a list on Letterboxd that has all of their movies, but it was made in 2014. It has not been updated.
Yeah, they just
got tired. So I couldn't find like a definitive list except on their website, which to be fair is not actually all that great for a website, but it's fine. But just in the 80s, so Day of the Dead, 1985, Night of the Creeps, 86, Evil Dead 2, 87, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, 88, 976 Evil, 88, House 3, Nightmare on Elm Street 5, Bride of Reanimator, Halloween 5. They went on to do Misery, From Dusk Till Dawn, Scream, Wishmaster, which we just watched.
They did a bunch of the Tarantino movies too, or at least...
Yep, I haven't... Yes.
They don't always work together as K&B, right?
Right, and this list also included some of them separately, and it wasn't... And these are not all movies they've done visual effects on. Some of them it's makeup, some of them is... So whatever the production credit, they have... If you watch horror, you've seen K&B, right? So... a great story, and there's an awesome article that will be linked in the show notes that talks a lot about this, and I'm wondering if like a lot of it comes from that documentary. And there's a video on YouTube. It's Joe Blow Horror, and so you can also watch a video if you don't feel like reading. But K&B had never been the effects supervisors on a film before, and they were kind of stuck in a catch-22. The companies don't get hired to be effects supervisors on productions until they've already worked in that capacity on another production. So Spiegel, who knew K&B because of Evil Dead 2, assumed they would be out of his price range, but he asked them for like a recommendation or a referral to somebody else. But they were so eager to be the effects supervisors, they took the job. And all they asked for was credit in the opening title sequence and $700 apiece. And so I did not know this before diving into this movie. So Intruder, the reason it feels like a love letter to special effects is because this was the audition tape, basically, for what became the premier special effects and makeup and gore team in Hollywood of the last 50 years. Absolutely wild. So that is who did the special effects. And now the effects, and this is kind of about distribution too, but I wanted to talk the NC-17, that it was originally rated NC-17 because of those effects, which we talked about a little bit earlier. And so obviously maybe some of the critics that has the fact that the special effects were taken out of the original screening of this film may also be why it never got the attention, as we were saying before, right? So never have special effects are always important, but for this movie, they really make it, right? Let's talk about some of these specific effects. Not a ton, just because you're going to talk about that in Murder Mayhem, but some of the scenes that stood out for me, like the spurting blood from Tim's belly, the meat hook under the jaw, which reminded me a lot of I Know What You Did Last Summer, which of course is, 8 or 9 years later. Man, the eyeball and the olives, Randy's body cut into pieces. The effects on this are so good, and they are all practical effects. And so if you've seen any of their movies, you know what you're in for. The one thing I thought, I think is it Dave's head that gets sawed in half? Yeah. So the one thing Spiegel said that filming the gelatin head sawing sequence, this was one that KMB was like, we could make this so good. We could do it right through the face. And it looks so good. Yeah. It looks so real. Spiegel has said it was so disturbing that it made him question what he was doing. And the script supervisor was in tears watching them film that scene. So special effects in this movie, oh baby.
A little too good sometimes.
Little too good. But yeah, that's what I've got for special effects. You'll hit the actual scenes as we go through Murder Mayhem in a little bit. But yeah, special effects, holy smokes, making this movie was so much fun.
Well, and before I get into that, I'll talk about the music just for a minute. The music doesn't play a huge role in this film. Some of the music in the film is stock audio from APM Music Library, but otherwise, the rest of the music was either by Dick Walter and or Graham DeWilde. And Dick Walter's composition, Voices from the Underworld, is sort of the main theme in this movie. It was previously used in the 1988 film Transformations, which is another like a B body horror type film. I looked it up. I have not seen it. It's not as highly rated as this film, but the music's not really a defining element of the film. It is, it's serviceable. It's very slashery. So I think that fits. It fits very well, but there's nothing that really stands out to me.
Lots of stings, lots of
synths.
I thought I did write down the music theme right after Bub's death that I liked it, but I don't know what theme that was so that's one thing I did not look up.
But I mean, I liked it, and I thought it did its job, and I enjoyed it. It was a slasher soundtrack, slasher score. And in terms of sound design, again, it was completely functional, environment driven. It uses the store ambience, one of my many challenges. Like the carts, the intercoms, the use of the intercom was kind of fun. Sort of when Danny's calling out for help and it's just feeding back in the store, and everybody's just like annoyed, not realizing obviously that this guy's on the edge of death. But that's pretty much all I have for music and sound.
Yeah, me too.
Shall we transition into story time?
Yeah.
Here we go. It's story time. Story time. Hit me with the characters. You talked about the cast.
Oh, there's so many characters. We've got Jennifer Ross, our final girl. Jennifer is assaulted by her ex-boyfriend and then is far more concerned about potentially losing her cashier's job that she just got a raise in after her ex like forcefully grabs her face and kisses her.
And he also smacked her.
And then, yes, she's bleeding, but she's like, oh no, my job. So I don't know. This was a fine performance. It wasn't a great performance. And Jennifer, again, the point of this is not highly deep characters. The point of this movie is what we've already talked about. So yeah, Jen is our final girl. I do like I do like her boundaries with Craig. I think she does a good job of kind of being like, hey, back off, buddy. And then she and Dave have a nice little romance before he's, chopped in half. And I'll talk more about this a little bit in themes. There's some like accidental themes in this, and I think one of those is probably one of the only slightly coherent ones is Jennifer and her relationship with Craig. She accidentally almost kills him, kind of like he accidentally killed the guy at the bar. Is there any sort of arc here? Not really. And then at the end, Jen and Craig get taken away for doing the murder. And so and her open scream is the last thing that we see. So kind of a cool final girl. Not one of my favorites. She does remain armed throughout. Good for her.
Bonus points.
Yep. That's always a big plus in my book. And there was one scene where she's betrayed by her blood, where her blood is seeping out, just like in Slumber Party Massacre, where Brinke Stevens' blood makes her visible to the driller killer. So
Ted. Sorry.
Ted thinks this is a slasher.
He just attacked the cat. I was watching him.
He did. That's the second time he's done that.
That's not nice, Ted.
Ted, what are you sniffing?
He was the Craig to the cat's Jennifer.
He is. He's kind of a little bitch. Like Craig, speaking of Craig Peterson, desperate and obsessive. When he comes, he's like, I left you those messages. And Jen's like, I haven't checked my answering machine in 2 days. Like, he's kind of pathetic, but also threatening at the same time. He is set up very carefully as the threat, right? He attacks Bill out in the parking lot, which was what makes the twist so good at the end. All we know is he's out on parole now, the cops say about him. Like, he got out of jail. And then she's like, oh, my boyfriend just showed up and punched me in the face. They're like, oh, well, I don't know.
Well, she didn't even mention that to them.
Oh, that's right. She was just like, he came and he called. Did he threaten you? Not really. Okay. Anyway, again, story, not strong suit here. His arc ends at the end with Jen. She almost kills him, but then they become unlikely allies, right? Which is also kind of an interesting thing where I do think that is a clever thing that they do with the characters here is you set up Craig as the killer and then at the very end, it's not him. But he still gets blamed for it along with our final girl. That is something we haven't seen elsewhere. So kind of cool. We've got Bill Roberts, played by Dan Hicks, our mustache guy, co-owner, and psycho. What an interesting villain he is, right? Very likable. We get a lot of depth into him, actually, probably the most into him of all the characters. He was a volunteer fireman. He tells a story about a headless corpse, about the other fireman walking down the street eating a sandwich and swinging a head, which then comes around later when he's walking around all bloody.
Did you see about that story?
No.
That story was originally told in the Coen Brothers movie Raising Arizona.
Oh.
Which was only a couple of years
before
this.
And Ethan Coen and Scott Spiegel were roommates in LA.
I think they all were.
Yeah, yes, it was them and Frances McDormand and a few other people.
And they were Spiegel and the Coens and Raimi. They were all collaborating on stuff at this time, helping each other out. And,
I did not see that story was from. Oh, that's so cool.
But in the Raising Arizona version, and I haven't seen that movie in 2 decades. I need to go back and watch it. But from what I've read, that they tell a similar story, but the name of the guy carrying the head and the sandwich is Bill Roberts.
Oh, that's so funny. That's really cool. I didn't know that at all. I was just thinking about the way that story gives him more depth than almost anybody else in the movie. And he, one of the iconic lines, I guess, from this would be, don't you see? I'm just crazy about this store. One of the weirdest motivations for a killer, I think, that we've seen. A lot of the slashers have no motivation, and Bill does have motivation. his 5149 partner is selling the store out from under him. And he's so upset about it that he kills everybody. Like,
Well,
he's
must have just snapped.
He's not supernatural. He is not driven by childhood trauma. He just loves the store. There's a point where he like puts laundry detergent back up on the shelf, even while he's like chasing Jen. Like, this is his store. He has to keep it in line. And then, of course, just that shot of him running across the counters after her. He is, yeah, not what you'd expect. Pretty cool villain overall.
Absolutely.
We've got Danny, his partner and co-owner. That scene where Danny, they're looking for Craig and he like goes into the bathroom and flushes the toilet. I wrote down in my notes almost Airplane or Naked Gun vibes, like very goofy vibes in this whole thing. Again, people who love making movies, right? But Danny, you know, wants to sell the store to the city. What city buys a store? I don't know. Anyway, that's Danny. We've got Bub, played by Burr Steers, our purple shirt guy in my notes, stoner, looking for Craig. He's eating cookies. He talks about somebody who was doing very serious drugs when he's clearly doing all the drugs. He got a full death scene. And, you know, we always have a stoner in a slasher, right? Stoners always, and they always get picked off, but in a pretty decent way. So Bub was a lot of fun. We've got Produce Joe, played by Ted Raimi, not Sam Raimi. Glasses, headphones, kind of his goofy character. He's totally clueless, listening to music the whole time, spitting watermelon seeds. I wrote that down, that scene. He had a very, very cool energy, very goofy kind of. And at one point, doesn't Randy yell like, "Hey, Joe, you lost your job." And he just keeps going, keeps chopping fruit until he gets chopped himself. Speaking of Raimi, we've got Randy, who makes a great entrance at the beginning when there's a scuffle with Craig, and he's like, "What's going on?" And he gets knocked over with his coffee and then slammed to the ground. Pretty good. He's the butcher, so he's doing lots of working with meat. And having Sam Raimi, again, be in this role, super fun. But again, not a lot of depth. Randy's the butcher. We've got Tim, who's drinking the whole time, basically, and watching Dave and Jen getting all freaky on the conveyor belt or on the checkout counter. Man, Tim half off. Pretty great. Yeah, once again, very much a, you know, just a bit of a body for fodder, right? But still, we've got Dave, speaking of, kind of our foil, nice, good-looking guy, really great screamer, I wanted to say. And man, amazing death that you'll talk about in a little bit. But Dave, again, he's not seeing Kara anymore, so now he can date Jen until, of course, he dies. Mr. Abernathy, we talked about. Emil Sitka. And then Linda as a character is kind of at the end just because she doesn't show up very much. She disappears pretty early, and then the reveal of her body later on gives us some more insight. But yeah, that's it. That's it for characters. There's a lot of them, but there's not a lot to say about most of them. There's not a lot of depth. But this movie, as you said, a lot of plot, not a lot of story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ton of plot. And I don't, maybe there are more answers in that documentary you mentioned, but I think I was saying to you, it's almost like, because it is during sort of when the slashers were dying out, you know, and at that, part of the reason they were dying out is that they were so many of them were being made so quickly, and so many of them had such little depth to them that it really kind of killed that subgenre. It's like this team that had already worked on some great movies. They were like, let's make a slasher movie. It doesn't have to be about much of anything, but the coolest parts are the shots and the kills. Like, let's just maximize the quality of those and put in some quirky stuff, put in some of the physical comedy that we've always loved from Three Stooges and everything, and call it a day and do everything to the best of our ability. And that's really where the depth is, as opposed to, the story. So
Agreed. That's it for characters. That's you.
All right. I guess it's time for me to do some murder mayhem. And you wouldn't have known that we just took a short break because we wouldn't have said anything. But we take breaks from time to time. We need them. Rachel went off to make sure that the child was getting ready for bed. And so I was skimming the news, and just coincidentally, I saw that Mamdani, the mayor of New York, plans to open a city-owned grocery store in East Harlem. So
What? Shut up.
to contradict your earlier statement about
Okay.
cities buying
And
grocery
to
stores.
call out our psychic horror episode last week about clairvoyance.
But anyway, Murder Mayhem. This movie, even though, it's definitely a tribute to the slasher genre, doesn't necessarily follow completely sort of the typical slasher, what do you call it?
Like
Framework?
Tropes? Or
Most slasher movies open with a kill, right? This movie doesn't. It actually takes quite a while before you get to the first kill. Normally, I was pointing this out to our older daughter that a lot of horror movies, and specifically slasher type movies, usually open with the threat that you can expect. And this movie doesn't do that. It just introduces you to the grocery store. And really the first Mayhem starts out with Craig, our leather jacket clad anti-hero, I guess you'd call him.
Yeah.
He comes in, he starts some shit with Jen, his ex from before he went to prison for manslaughter. I guess he beat somebody to death by accident.
happens all the time.
Eventually he gets quite grabby with her, smacks her in the face, causing her a bloody nose that basically doesn't cease for the rest of the movie, on and off. And this little squabble turns into a brawl between Craig and almost all of the workers of the grocery store. But somehow, in all of the mayhem, Craig gets away.
There's so many people on him.
And that's really sort of the inciting incident of this, because now you've got this guy who's clearly dangerous, and they don't know where he's gone. So everybody sort of starts out by trying to figure out where he is. Eventually, they do find him and lock him out of the store. And it is outside of the store where we have our first kill. Linda, she's packed up some groceries. She's going to take him to her boyfriend, Teddy. He had called earlier, said he wanted some beer, and she was heading out for the night, it sounds like, even though everybody else was sort of forced to stay because they had to price everything half off. It's another great example of their use of shadows and cinematography. It starts off as sort of a interesting angle because you sort of see her and she's behind the car and the trunk is raised and you see a shadow cast against the raised trunk of the car, and you see a big knife being raised and you don't actually see her being killed on screen. I wonder if that was shot and was never put back in or what. But maybe not. Maybe that's how they intended it. A bit later, after we've seen some tense interactions between Danny and Bill, the two co-owners, Danny is in the little manager's office that overlooks the grocery store. You always see those at the grocery store too. That's always like a place of mystery for me. I always wanted to go up in one of those and look out over the grocery store. They've had them I usually notice them.
I don't think I've ever noticed them before.
Yeah.
I had one when I ran a Radio Shack back in 2004. We had a little room like that was my office that I could look out over the store from up above. But I'm going to have to go look for that next time I'm at the grocery store.
So Danny's up there alone working on some paperwork, and he starts to get strangled from behind. And then his head gets pushed down onto the spike that he's spiking down all the receipts on and everything. I don't know what you call those spikes, but they got them lots of different places.
I said receipt pin, but spike is better.
He gets the spike right through the eye like a classic old Giallo movie. And is he dead? He seems like he might be dead. His blood's going everywhere. It slowly covers the light, which turns the entire room red, which is a great touch. And then Joe's next. Ted Raimi, and the produce Joe, he's out back and he is hacking away at some produce with his big knife and just these big, huge swings at, is he working on a watermelon at that point?
I think so. And he has the sign, right, that says knives are sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It keeps focusing on his big swings, and then it's like a match cut within a scene. There's another big swing with a knife, and all of a sudden, it's in the back of his head.
Yeah, it's really cool.
If we're calling Joe Produce Joe, the next is Beer Tim, who gets a knife through the gut, which goes through him and then into the case of beer behind him, and the blood and beer all spray everywhere at once. Pretty phenomenal shot. And then you've got Bub, his head smashed with the hydraulic press, which, there's a lot of those hydraulic press videos on YouTube these days. You don't see that, and you would hope not to, but just another one of the great special effects moments. Then our other Raimi brother, Mr. Sam, the director, playing Randy, as Rachel mentioned previously, gets a meat hook through the face, right up under the chin, and I guess that was Ted Raimi's idea. Originally, he was going to get a meat hook in the gut, and he was like, we got to hang you like a piece of meat. It's right around this time, because I think that was Randy was looking for something up in the crawl space, and you get a jump scare from the co-owner, Danny, who that's when you realize he's not actually dead. He's up there in the crawl space somehow, still asking for some help. But that's a side note. We get lover boy Dave gets kicked and then cleavered and then dragged around out back, taken into the butcher's area where his face is sliced right sideways through the head by the big butcher slicer. And we're not talking about the one where you get your turkey slice. This is the one the butchers use to, deconstruct the meat.
Yeah, this is big. Yeah.
So at this point, Jen realizes she's kind of all alone all of a sudden and starts looking for everyone else. And she goes into the butcher area where the giant slabs of meat are hanging from the hooks. And that's where she first discovers Randy is dead. He sort of slides out on the hook towards her, and she realizes, we got a problem here. And at that time, she kind of sees a shadow and hears some noises, so she decides to hide and goes deeper into the meat freezer and arms herself with a meat hook. Smart thinking. However, she realizes she might not be completely safe in there. She sees some more movement, hears some more noise, and decides that the killer's in there with her. So she runs out with the killer following behind. We don't see the killer yet. We assume it's Craig because he's been the danger this whole time. She tries to close the freezer door, but the killer gets his hands through right in time, so the door doesn't get completely closed. So she uses her meat hook and stabs a big old hand right in the hand there. And she runs, gets away, and as she's running out, she starts discovering her co-workers' bodies in different states of deconstruction.
It's so good.
And it's pretty phenomenal, really. Not only are the kills great, but the way that the bodies are staged. I think, is it Joe? His body comes down that like rolly conveyor belt thing out back.
Yeah.
It rolls all the way down and then starts rolling back up, and his head falls off, and then like all the pieces of his body start falling apart.
It's really cool.
Like, I'm not even sure how they did that because, it was all together for sure on the way down. So that was a really neat trick. Then the power goes out as it should in a horror movie, if not by some storm, but by the killer. Were you going to say something?
No.
Oh.
I was just agreeing and smiling and remembering
and
how
right
good it is.
Right after the power goes out, Jen basically spots some car lights approaching the building. And the viewers see that a shopper is approaching the building, but realizes the store is closed. So, kind of curses under his breath. And
that must be Greg Nicotero.
Yes, that must be Greg Nicotero, and drives away. Jen doesn't get to the door in time. And that's the moment where we see the reflection of Craig behind her, not sure at first whether he's outside or inside. He's inside, and she whacks him with the meat hook, and he's down for the count.
Yeah.
So we think, okay, whew, a bit of a sigh of relief at that point. And she hears a noise, looks scared. I'd be scared too. What's going on? Who else is up and about? And around the corner, here comes co-owner Bill. Our friendly manager, co-owner, Bill to the rescue.
Friendly mustache man.
She gives him a big hug. She is relieved. He says he's going to go call the police, so he walks over to one of the checkout stands or the service area, picks up the phone, and she realizes, wait a second, I'm covered in blood all of a sudden after hugging Bill. And she looks, and he's got a big hole in his hand, as if somebody had jammed a meat hook in it, because somebody had. The killer's not Craig. It's Bill.
Surprise.
The guy on the poster with the cleaver. And so begins the long pursuit of Jen by Bill. It's fantastic, using every inch of the grocery store that they can. At one point during this whole cat and mouse section of the movie, a bread delivery guy, Scott Spiegel, shows up at the door. She thinks she's going to get help from this delivery guy. She had been hiding, but ran out to greet him at the door. And as she's basically yelling, get help, because she's locked in at this point. She can't get out. She's yelling, and all of a sudden, nope, bread delivery guy gets a big old butcher knife. And these butcher knives in this movie are gigantic.
They're like extra big, right? Like extra big.
You see
knives.
that in Halloween sometimes too. I don't know if they must exist. I don't know. I don't know if it's like Slumber Party Massacre where they oversized it to be cheeky. But I said bread delivery guy at door with giant knife from behind and a bonk for good measure, because Bill gives him sort of an extra knock on the top of the head after he's stabbed him. A little bit later, I don't have point for point detail here, but
It gets a little crazy at the end.
yeah, all of a sudden, Danny's like moaning and it looks like he's crawling from around the corner of one of the aisles, but you realize it's just Danny's decapitated head
That's right.
being manipulated by Bill, who's sort of living out in real life his story about the firefighter who is carrying the head and the sandwich, because now he comes strolling along with Danny's head in one hand, a sandwich in the other, and he's eating the sandwich, just making a good old time out of it. And then how does Jen get out of the store?
I don't remember.
She must have.
Did they break
I
a
remember.
window?
I remember. No, at some point, Craig comes to. She realizes that
Right.
he might be an asset in this, and he basically tells her, he's like, I got back in through the window in the bathroom.
Oh, that's
And
right.
so, like a tie to The Shining, she gets out the bathroom window, and she's outside of the store. There's a Jeep out there. She runs to one side of the Jeep, opens the driver's side door, and that's where Linda's body has been stored, scaring her. Another great little moment, she's standing there and her legs get grabbed from underneath the car. Gets pulled onto her back, and Bill is pulling her underneath the car. We see that she's kind of has her hands over her head as she's being dragged out by the feet. And what we don't see at first, that she's somewhere picked up one of those big knives, and she stabs Bill with it. Is he dead? Probably not. So there's a nearby phone booth. Jen runs. She's going to call the police, tell them, get, things, come on. But Bill's not dead. And he overturns the phone booth with her in it
That's such a cool scene, too.
and starts attacking her. But luckily, Craig shows up and kills Bill. Maybe this is how Lawrence Bender got into the Kill Bill game. Craig shows up and kills Bill, or does he, with the cleaver in the overturned phone booth. And with so many hacks. Bill's got to be dead, right?
So dead.
He hits him like 15 times with the cleaver. But Bill's not really dead yet. Somewhere along the lines here, after the cleaver's happening, we think Bill's dead. The police show up. Hey, it's Bruce Campbell. Relief all around. But there's a problem. As Jen and Craig are the only ones still standing, they look like the possible suspects in all of this. And sure enough, Bill, who's near death but not really dead, kind of yells from his position in the phone booth, all hacked up, he yells to the police, they're the ones who did it. And then he dies, apparently.
Maybe. But his plan was to blame Craig the whole time.
Right.
And now he gets to blame Craig and Jen. He was like, I'm sorry I have to kill you, Jen. But it's going to be great.
But Bill's not really dead, because
not.
the movie ends with Bill opening his eyes with one last horror sting in the background. Jen sees this and screams, and the credits roll. And I read that Spiegel originally thought of having the final shot go all the way down Jennifer's throat and inside her body to her heart, ending with a freeze frame as the heart stops beating.
Oh.
But obviously that one's kind of tough to pull off when you've only got $130,000.
That blows my mind how small that budget was. That's crazy.
So that's it for Murder Mayhem. Quite a romp. It's quite a slasher romp. I love me a good slasher romp. And this, as far as romps go in a slasher film, this might be among the rompiest.
It really is. And I'm remembering now why I scored this so highly. Like, why, but the thing is, I scored it really high without knowing all this stuff. I appreciate it even more now. And I think I like it even more. I'm still going to keep it at a 4 because it's not The Thing, which is a 4.5. Right. So, but it is up there. This is definitely tops. I do have a few things on themes, not a lot.
Let's hear them.
Themes. This is, I guess, it's less a theme and more just a topic. I don't know. But form over story, whether that's actually a problem. As you said, you were like, plenty of plot, no story. Side note, I thought you said plenty of pot. And I was like, that makes sense for this movie because I thought you were saying like they must have been high when they made this. And then no, you said plenty of plot. So my hearing's fine. But yeah, it was really a showcasing of cinematography and special effects. And so this is like, is it okay to have a movie that is about form and not story? And yes, obviously, the answer is yes. And I think horror hits lots of different people in lots of different ways. And this movie's a great example of what I love about horror, but I also love a story, but I still love this movie because it is not because it's diving deep into these really deep themes of abandonment and human suffering, but just because it's cool. It's cool art and it's made by people and it is, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what you think about that.
Well, I think, and I've mentioned it before in past episodes, but like, I'm not the deepest watcher of movies. I am much more so now, but I don't often pick up on all the themes except some of the more obvious ones, maybe. I often just watch movies, not as much so anymore, but really surface level. Like, this movie's a great example of how I see movies when I watch them. So I think that's why I might not have even picked up on the fact that there wasn't really a lot of depth to the story. I mean, if you'd asked me, is there a lot of depth to the story? I'd say no. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of how I see it. I see what they're showing me on the screen.
Right. And I think that that's okay. And for all that I obviously love me like a 45-minute discussion about the deeper themes going on in a film, I don't need that to enjoy or love or appreciate a film. I think our songs are often really exemplify that as well. Some of the songs that we write because of this podcast are really deep and could be on an album that's not based on horror movies, right? And some of them, thinking about like the one I wrote for Friday the 13th, Arrow, just a song about an arrow. Like there's nothing deeper there. It's just really fun with words. And I think that this movie is fun with filmmaking the way that sometimes we write songs that are just fun with songs and fun with music for you, the production piece, right? Where you put in like a little synth thing or a little kick or something that's just, and I always, when I hear it and I'm like, I hear what you did there. This whole movie feels like that. And so I think that that's really an important piece of the conversation. And also people get so upset about like, oh, what's good horror, what's not? It's like, no, there's different kinds. And this one is one of those where the form is what makes it so amazing. It doesn't need a super deep story. But then it doesn't mean that all horror is storyless and just about form. It just means that this movie is that.
And it's okay to make something that's just fun and entertaining.
And it's okay to like that. It's okay to like something that's not super deep, that's just made for entertainment and for love of the genre. I'm thinking Wishmaster here, which also has a lot of the same people. Not a lot, but some of the same people. Yeah, so that was the kind of the one I thought about the most as I was looking at this. There's the grocery store as horror space, which I'll just touch on because I think we might hit this in the encore. But it's that everyday setting that's made dangerous through familiarity, right? So you've been in these aisles, you've seen all these things, except the Frosted Flakes with some weird guy on the front, not Tony the Tiger. But there's, the lobster tank, the lobsters with the hand in it, the laundry detergent that kept falling, everything is super ordinary and yet super scary, which is kind of what the slasher did, right? Like the babysitter killer, you're at home, you should be safe, and you're not. And we talked about that with Slumber Party Massacre, same thing, where these girls are having this night and then all of a sudden it's dangerous. So yeah, that the grocery store as the mundane becomes dangerous is chef's kiss. Other themes and just tropes, really, again, not a ton here, but the misdirect and then the actual killer, it's hard to do a twist. I mean, original Friday the 13th hit most people, right? Big old twist at the end there. And we've got this one here that was really done well and then ruined by the poster. You know what I was thinking of? The movie Abigail. They did that. They're still doing that. Companies are still doing that, ruining it. And these days it's like, what's in the blurb on Netflix? Don't read the description. But sometimes they put it right on the poster. And that's really annoying. Okay, this is a stretch. You could, I have to say it though. So you could see Bill. So Bill's motivation is super boring and banal, right? He loves his grocery store and doesn't want to let go of it. You could look at like a capitalist reading. The man who owns the place is so entitled to it that he'll destroy everything rather than allow it to be taken from him. So like the ultimate in consumerism.
That's what a lot of ththose movies were supposedly about, right? Like Dawn of the Dead in the mall.
Oh, the zombie movies 100% were about consumerism and capitalism and all that. I don't know if that was in the writing of this movie at all. I think far more is like the banality of a grocery store becomes not. I don't think that theme's actually there, but I think you could see it. You could stretch it. A little bit with Jennifer and Craig, like abusive relationship and how she responds to it, but whatever. And I think also really just the whole Raimi Campbell creative universe and how this movie is just like a love letter by these guys at the early stage in their career. Just it is like the core of and the whole effects story, all of that. This is what collaborative art looks like. And I think it's just a love letter to the genre and to filmmaking in general. So that was it, really.
And I do think that they really just made what they set out to make. And I think they succeeded at that. It doesn't seem to me like they were setting out to make a Halloween or...
You said something really good about this film compared to Wishmaster, which I know we've mentioned a few times, but Robert Kurtzman, who is part of this group in this team.
The special effects,
yes. He's part of this universe, right? This little creative universe. He is the director of that movie. And so the special effects team is the same. You said something really, really compelling about these two movies. Do you remember what it was?
Well, yeah, because you had we're a little past that now, but a couple of weeks ago now, we had watched Wishmaster.
Yeah.
Which I enjoyed plenty, but I wanted to enjoy it more. And you enjoyed it more than I did. And you had made a video on our socials about it. And I had said, and I ran out of time to do it, to make it at a time that was relevant. I was almost made a response video to your video, kind of saying why I didn't think it hit the way some other movies hit for me, even in that sort of, B-movie genre where there's a lower budget and they're not necessarily trying to make some sort of highbrow horror movie. Some of those work great for me. I like hokey. I like cheesy old horror movies. And I thought that what was weak about Wishmaster that's not weak in this movie is that in this movie, everybody is in the same movie. Like the tone is consistent across all the characters and throughout the whole movie. And in terms of Wishmaster, this is not a Wishmaster episode, but I thought the performances were inconsistent, that not all of the actors were acting like they were in the same movie. Like some people were playing it more over the top than others. And to me, that takes me out a bit and makes me enjoy it less. A movie can be completely cheesy and hokey if all the actors are playing it the same way. And they succeeded at that in this as well.
As a writing teacher, I often correct when my students are writing. A lot of times they'll start in one tense, they'll start in the past tense and then change to the present tense. And so when I'm correcting their writing, I'll say, hey, you can put it in either one, but you have to be consistent. And that's what I'm thinking of right now. Like the people that Wishmaster, they were in different tenses. And so it's just got to be the same. And Intruder's more cohesive. There's cohesion there. And I thought that was just a really great observation that you made about the two and why they sit differently. And while I did, yes, enjoy Wishmaster, I would not give it a 4. I did not give it a 4, right? This movie is better. And I think you nailed a little bit about why that is. Who is your favorite character?
I didn't really think about that. I'll go with Produce Joe.
Cool. He was my other choice. I actually picked Bub because of my favorite quote was said mostly by him when he's telling a story to Linda. And he says, "I swear to God, if my brother hadn't hit him in the head repeatedly with a blender, he would have killed me." Linda goes, "A blender?" Bub says, "Yeah, a Hamilton Beach blender."
That was my favorite quote.
Ugh, stop it. I'm trying to pick
Except I was going to
things.
perform it better.
Okay, go.
I swear to God, if my brother hadn't hit him in the head repeatedly with a blender, he would have killed me.
A blender?
Yeah, a Hamilton Beach blender.
Okay, fine. You performed it better. I love that quote because it encapsulates the crazy randomness of the movie. And Bub was just a great character. Every time he showed up on screen, I was excited. So.
And I also really liked, it's not exactly a quote, more of a scene, and we talked about it, but when Bill, it's basically lunch break, but it's a late night lunch break. Everybody's back in the break room when Bill is telling the story about the firefighter who finds the decapitated heads, carrying it and eating a sandwich. That performance of that story is really great and really compelling. You get that a lot, and I don't know if that was their idea, was that they were sort of doing a tribute to the slasher movie where they're sort of giving the lore of, usually it's in like, if you're thinking about a Friday the 13th movie, many of the sequels have the campfire moment where one of the sort of higher ups at the camp is sort of telling the other counselors the story of Jason. That's kind of what this reminded me of, and I just found it really compelling and enjoyed it. Also, like, what's the movie? We watched it not that long ago. They're telling the story about, Cabin Fever, where they're telling the story about the bowling alley.
Yeah, that's right.
And like Eli Roth pops up in that part of the story too.
That's right. Yes.
Oh no, it was Eli Roth's brother. Anyway.
That's right.
Getting ahead of myself. But kind of one of those stories where a scary campfire story. And this was Bill's scary campfire story.
Oh, that's a really good call. Yeah, good observation. I think we've come to the end of our own story time.
Yes.
Which means it's time for the open mic.
Yes, and this week our gimmick is character study, which means we each based our song on a character. We haven't done this yet.
I really hope we didn't pick the same one.
We might have, but then it'll be up to the listeners to decide who encapsulated that character better in their song.
Or maybe there is no better because art is subjective.
No, it's all a competition and you're going to die. Sorry. Whoa. Jeez. I don't know what just happened. Pardon me. It's late. All right. Let's get set up for that.
All right, let's do it.
Ladies and gents, we proudly present
For your listening delights, this week's open mic.
All right. So, this is my song inspired by Intruder. I picked Craig, the bad guy, quote unquote. And the reason I picked Craig is because I think he's a deeper character than we're giving him credit for. And I'm only, half serious here. I don't want anyone to think I'm defending an abuser. But I was writing sort of one song about Craig and then wrote a line that I thought was kind of funny, and it changed my trajectory. So this is a love song written by Craig for Jennifer, which I think is something that he would do. But in this process, I've created a bit of a backstory for Craig. And Craig here, he wears his leather jacket, but his toughness is a bit of a defense mechanism. All he wants is love. He, when he gets his friends in his car, he's listening to some 80s punk music, maybe a little hair metal, but really, he grew up listening to the music of his parents, which was country music. And so when he strums his acoustic guitar, really, he kind of leans a little bit country. And this is Craig's song for Jennifer called One More Shot. Though I might have killed a man, no one can understand that I'm just looking for love. It's all I'm thinking of. I'm just looking for love. I can't go on. I know I'm in the wrong, and I'm not treating you right. I just know how to fight. I'm not treating you right, but I can change my ways. So let's get out of this place. It's only love I need, and you're the one I want. I'll always have your back. You just gotta give me one more shot. So get in the trunk. I called you on the phone. I wrote you lots of poems, but you never gave me a time. Made me lose my mind. You never gave me a time. But I can change my ways. So let's get out of this place, 'cause it's only love I need, and you're the one I want. I'll always have your back. You just gotta give me one more shot. So get in the trunk. And when we get to where we're going, it's a mighty fine surprise I'm throwing. I plan to get down on my bended knee, and you can trust me moving forward. It's a lifetime we're moving toward. As soon as you agree to marry me, it's only love I need, and you're the one I want. I'll always have your back. You just gotta give me one more shot. It's only love I need, and you're the one I want. I'll always have your back. You just gotta give me one more shot. So get in the trunk.
That was great.
Thank you.
That was really good. You've got really good country vibes, man. I know that's not your style of choice, but damn.
Thank you.
Really good. And you got me with Get in the Trunk. That is a great line. And I can hear Craig working on this song, drinking a bottle of whiskey in his crappy little one-room apartment, dreaming of how Jennifer is just going to follow him anywhere. And if she doesn't, well, shit, he'll put her in the trunk.
Yeah, and I think that exemplifies the little screw loose that he seems to have.
Yes, like 100%. Really good job. That was super fun.
Well, thank you, love. Shall we get you set up?
Yeah, let's switch it up. Okay, I also wrote about the villain, but not the same villain. This is called Company Guy, and it is about the killer, about our guy. And I think I may have used some of this music before, but I'm not sure which song. So as far as I know, it's original, but if I've plagiarized myself, oops, I promise I won't sue. All right, cool. So this is called Company Guy. Welcome to the team. I bet you've never been at a place that's quite like this. It's like we're all a family. And let me introduce the one you'll be reporting
reporting to the greatest boss you've ever known. Wait till you hear how his stories go. He's a company guy and he isn't shy about his love for the store. He's a company guy and he's got his eye on you. No matter what you say and no matter what you do, he's a company guy and he's gonna find you. Now that you're on the crew, here's a long list of things to do. Just work hard and you'll get through. The night shift can get crazy. We take our jobs real serious. Sometimes we even get delirious. And if you slack off, he might get furious. He just loves this store, you see. He's a company guy. He isn't shy about his love for the store. He's a company guy and he's got his eye on you. No matter what you say and no matter what you do, he's a company guy and he's gonna find you. He's a company guy and he's gonna find you. Take that.
Cut your head in half.
And cut you in pieces using lots of fun different ways to get it. Yeah, that's just a fun little one.
Very nice. I can see how Bill would think that's his way.
Yeah, he's just a company guy, man. He's just a real believer in the store.
Booping and bopping. Just don't mess with the store.
Yeah, definitely still in that musical theater style of mine where if we did Intruder the musical, like they have done Evil Dead the musical, which I haven't seen, but if you did Intruder the musical, this would be like, you know, the song where we get introduced to Bill. But yeah, that's it. I think yours is a little more complete this week.
Well, once in a while.
Well, yeah, so let's get back to our positions because it's getting dark. Nope, that's not it. Losing light, that's it.
I mean, same difference.
I know, but losing light is the thing we say, not getting dark.
We're going dark.
Going dark, okay.
All right, we're losing light on a very fun episode.
Oh, that was so much fun. I love doing these movies. This is what I love. People say, I don't like horror movies. And I'm like, there's so many different kinds of movies in horror. And today, this week, and this movie and the last movie really encapsulated that. I wonder what the next movie's going to be.
Well, let me spin the wheel of horror. Horror. Oh, I got it all queued up. Let me just shuffle it a couple of times and then I'll tell you what our choices, well, not our choices, what the options might be. It's a random wheel app on the phone, not a sponsor yet, so I'm not going to tell you which one it is, but maybe someday. The movies on the Wheel of Horror currently are Child's Play, It Follows, Weapons, A Quiet Place, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Sleepaway Camp, Pieces, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Smile, The Strangers, Carrie, 30 Days of Night, and Alien. And then, of course, we have the sequel, which if we land on the sequel, then I'm going to spin another wheel to find out what sequel to one of the prior films we've watched we will be watching, which we haven't hit that yet. We haven't done any sequels.
I know, it's crazy. And it's crazy that there's a lot of these movies that we haven't covered yet, but...
All right, here we go.
Let's do it. What? No, why are you looking at me like that? Why are you looking at me like that? Stop.
It is Smile.
God damn it, I knew it. You did the crazy eyes looking at me over the mic. God damn it. Fine. Our 19th movie is going to be Smile. the one that I'm the least excited about because it scares the crap out of me.
All right, let's find out what our songwriting gimmick's going to be for Smile.
Oh, could it not be hide under the covers and cry? No, that's not a gimmick? I'm going to have to brace myself for this one.
All right, No Names. We've enjoyed this one in the past.
That's appropriate for this. No Names means that we write a song that doesn't sound like it has to do with the movie, even though it does. So, yeah.
We always say this, song inspired by such and such movie. This is probably the gimmick that is most like inspired by and it's even more so than freestyle in a way because we're specifically forced to not
Right.
reference.
With freestyle, we could reference the movie. We could make it really clearly about the movie. And then with this one, though, the point is you have to be able to play it for someone and they can't. Yeah. Great. And actually, I have to say, we've bounced back and forth now a few times. We've had, Slumber Party Massacre, The Shining, Intruder, Smile. Like, this will be a good one. Plenty of themes in this one.
Absolutely. Well,
boy.
Until then, you can find us online anywhere you do the social medias at OMNLDpod. You can also email us comments, questions, your favorite kind of ice cream at omnldpod@gmail.com. We also have omnldpod.com. And you can find Rachel on Letterboxd. She's Chill Out Barbara. You can't find me there because I just write things in my notes app on my phone because I'm too scared to let everyone know what I think about things.
Not me, because I don't care what you think about my opinions, because that's an opinion and they're all subjective. And I love hearing other people's opinions. So find me.
Well, next week we will be back with an encore episode where right now it sounds like we're doing grocery store horror, but it's possible that could change. And then we'll have a studio demo of one of those two songs we played for you tonight. But as always, we appreciate you being here. Mention this to one friend you think might like it, and that would help us out a lot. And I wish I had something cheeky to say that would be Intruder related, but I'm all out. I've been hooked in the cheek with a meat hook, so.
Well, I guess we're going to need cleanup in the recording booth. Was that good? It wasn't good. You do so much better.
I'll add chirps.
Okay, perfect.
Cricket chirping. It'll make that perfect.
Perfect. All right. Well, we'll see you next week.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
See ya.